Right now, I turn to my right and welcome in a guest who has a fantastic podcast that's out right now, 30 for 30 podcasts, and The Undefeated present the Sterling Affairs that just went live on Tuesday, reported and hosted all 5 episodes by ESPN senior writer Ramona Shelburne. Good to see you.
How you doing, Rich?
I'm great. Great stuff here, Ramona. I mean, so first off, the Donald Sterling Affairs that we're talking about right here. I mean, great name.
Plural.
You cut so many different ways here. The recordings between him and I guess V. Stiviano. Okay.
People remember her with the visor.
Yeah, with the visor. That's the V, right? In a way. His mistress that caused all sorts of mayhem is the only word for it, I guess. So where did a lot of these recordings that have never been heard from before? Where'd you get these? Where's these from?
A lot of people just remember like the one tape, right, where he says all the racist things, and it's terrible. You heard it on TMZ and then Deadspin and then all over. There were actually hundreds and hundreds of tapes that she had been making of Donald for from September till about April when these break, right? So that's 7 months. She had been recording him for a long time, and under the auspices of Donald had been forgetting things, and he would tell her to do things, and so she said, "I'm going to record you so you remember you telling me this." Mm-hmm. Okay, but in the reason why this escalates into a full-fledged scandal is because when V. Stiviano gets into a sort of a domestic dispute with Shelley Sterling, Donald's wife, Shelley then sues V. Stiviano to get back all of the gifts that Donald had given her. So that's Bentleys, Range Rovers, Ferraris, a $1.8 million duplex. And that court case puts the mistress, V. Stiviano, in a bad position. She tried unsuccessfully for months to get Shelley Sterling to drop the court case. And Shelley wouldn't drop it because this is a principled thing here. This is, yes, she's mad at her husband, but she's really mad at this mistress. She wants this community property back. And those tapes get entered into evidence in the court case. And V has to turn them over, and this is one or two of them leak.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay? I have a sense of how that happens. But those tapes are now in evidence, and in the court case, which I didn't think Shelley was going to win. When that first came up, I was like, this was a pretty landmark judgment for Shelley for the wife to sue the mistress and then recover the assets as community property. She won it, though, because she listened to hundreds and hundreds of hours of those tapes and caught V. Stiviano and Donald Sterling conspiring to hide some of the gifts that he had given her and hide them from Shelley.
So that's how everything became unraveled, not only in the marriage, but also the affair, and then eventually the Los Angeles Clippers.
Correct.
So, and a couple other items that this podcast revealed that Chris Brockman and we were talking about. You couldn't. Amazing. I mean, you couldn't believe that the Lakers essentially wound up with the Buss family because.
Yeah, because Jerry Buss needed some money and went to Donald Sterling to get the cash, but Donald wanted real estate instead.
And that's how the Lakers wound up with the Buss family?
So Jerry Buss was wanting to buy the Lakers for quite some time. Remember, Jack Kent Cooke was the previous owner.
Right.
He ends up getting divorced, and they have to divide up the assets because that's what you do in California. It's community property. So he doesn't want to sell the team. Everybody wants to own the Lakers. But Jerry Buss saw an opportunity, knowing that Jack Kent Cooke was going to have to sell. And he got into this very complicated transaction that was not just like money for the team. It was a bunch of real estate changing hands. He buys the LA Kings, he buys the Lakers, he buys the Forum. There's a ranch up in Fort Tejon that he also buys. But at the end, one of Jerry's minority investors drops out some of the financing that he had to pay Jack Kent Cooke for this purchase was $67 million. Falls through at the last minute. So one of his late night phone calls of trying to salvage the deal and come up with the money so they can close was to a guy named Donald Sterling, who had a mutual friend named Frank Mariani, who was one of the Jerry Buss's business partners. They're both just real estate guys in LA. And about 11 o'clock at night, he calls up Donald Sterling. The next morning, they go to the bank together, and Donald Sterling and Jerry Buss are not morning guys. But they had to get up and close the sale at 8 o'clock in the morning and go to the bank together to get the last $3 million.
So, and then using Donald Sterling's money, the Lakers kicked the Clippers' ass for 3 decades, pretty much.
In a way, I mean, Donald Sterling could have just bought in and been one of the co-owners of the Lakers, but he didn't want that. He wanted real estate. He
Right.
wanted some of Jerry Buss's apartment buildings in Santa Monica. So, but he did get the perks of, friend of the family, friend of the organization. In
Yes.
that first year, Jerry Buss buys the team, and they are wildly successful. As you know, the Lakers go and win a championship. The Forum Club is the West Coast version of Studio 54. Everybody in LA wanted to be there. And one of the frequent visitors to the Forum Club and the special room inside the Forum Club, that was Jerry's room, that was like invite only, and you had to be on a list to get in there, was Donald Sterling. And he saw all of that. And I remember the thing that really got me of like why this was so important was I was talking to Bob Steiner, who was Jerry Buss's longtime publicist. And I said, what was Donald like in those days? And he goes, he came to me one time and said, Donald Sterling came to him and said, I want you to do for me what you did for Jerry Buss. He goes, it wasn't me. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to buy the Lakers. Well, a couple years later, Donald Sterling buys the Clippers
In San Diego. And moves them to Los Angeles.
And a lot of this, Rich, comes back to just they are remarkably similar backstories. They're both like rags to riches stories. They both came from poverty. Donald Sterling is a guy from East LA who put himself through law school, worked his way up, built a real estate empire in LA. Jerry Buss is from Wyoming, put himself through USC, got a doctorate in chemistry, built a real estate empire in LA. They're very similar backstories.
Well, you want to talk about similar backstories, an LA story. So you're saying Buss, using Sterling's money, buys a team in the Lakers that's available because Jack Kent Cooke is getting divorced.
Yep.
And currently Ballmer owns the Clippers because of a crumbling marriage as well. That's a Los Angeles story more than anything else.
I mean, literally, as I was
Ramona.
reporting on this for the last 5 years,
amazing.
I said so many times, like, you could not write this. Like, if you wrote this as a screenplay, people wouldn't believe you. Like, you couldn't. The twists and turns that it goes through. It's really the ultimate LA story. I mean, in a lot of ways, Donald Sterling is a lot of people who come to Los Angeles. They want to be famous. They equate celebrity and money with validation and respect. And I think this town chews up and spits out a lot of people like that, right? You come here thinking like you're famous and you made it, and at the end of it, you only make it for what you're remembered by. And he's remembered as one of the worst owners in all of sports.
Ramona Shelburne here on the Rich Eisen Show. I don't think he is the worst owner in all of sports, Donald Sterling. I mean, in terms of win-loss, in terms of what he did while he was here, and then what he did to lose the franchise. I can't imagine a worse owner. What did you learn that you did not know from all of the reporting in this again, it's a 5-episode series that's already live. It went live Tuesday, 30 for 30 and undefeated. Present the podcast, The Sterling
Pretty
Affairs.
bingeable, right? Like if you start listening to it's one of those like serialized things.
Sure.
So if you start driving to LA and then end up in Vegas because you can't, you listen to all 5. Don't blame me for that.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Sure.
I think the thing that I learned most of all was how much this had played out over and over and over. This exact set of circumstances had played out, but we didn't have cell phone justice. We didn't have TMZ. We didn't have all of the ways that rich, powerful white men get brought down now. And there was other mistresses, there were other scandals, there were other things that could have brought Donald Sterling down. And when I was doing this story, my North Star of like, why is this something that we're retelling is, why was it this scandal? Why was it this mistress? Why was it this tape? And why was the NBA finally ready to do something about Donald Sterling? And why? And I think that what I learned in reporting it is it took this particular set of events, this particular mistress, the fact that she was able to tape him. I mean, there were other mistresses, but they didn't have a cell phone. They would have had to take out a video camera, and he would have known what that was for, and he wouldn't have allowed that. I don't know that a regular mainstream media outlet would have just run that salacious tape. It might have taken a TMZ to do that. Like I talked to the man from TMZ, Mike Walters, who broke the story. He didn't even know who Donald Sterling was. He just knew he was a rich, powerful guy who was saying awful things, and they had to be heard. And so then he went to look up who Donald Sterling was, and he was like, "Oh yeah, okay." But this was this era. I mean, this is right before Ray Rice. This is well before Me Too. This is well before a lot of the other scandals that we've seen where rich, powerful guys have been taken down. And And I don't think Donald Sterling ever really saw the threat in this until it was far too late.
Ramona, Shelburne here on the Rich Eisen Show. Another reason to retell this story right now. I mean, we, on this show, when Paul George decided to bust out of Oklahoma City, however he could, to join Kawhi Leonard here for the Clippers, we said it started with V. Stiviano. I mean, and I was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not really, because now here we are in Los Angeles. The Lakers have yet another generationally brilliant, talented person, maybe the most famous athlete on the planet, with all due respect to soccer players, and LeBron James, with Anthony Davis here. Lakers have the usual, but now the unusual is that the Clippers have theirs, with Ballmer and Doc Rivers, who you interviewed in this as well, because he was the coach at the time of all this. So this is an interesting time to tell it, because this is the center of the NBA universe. It
really
right
is.
Now,
and like, Ralph Lawler, who is their longtime announcer, and I did a really long interview, and Ralph just retired.
I know.
And he's like, oh my God, really? I retired now?
It's the anti-bingo, right? I know.
And he, there's a part of him that's like, oh, maybe this was 1 year too early. I don't know. But, he said he had a friend who would always say to him, like, the Clippers are never going to win until Donald Sterling is gone. They can't win with him as the owner. And Ralph was like, no. And the irony of that team and that season when the tapes come out is like, that's probably the best chance they ever had at winning. And then, of course, Donald, messes it all up. But when you look at this now, it's like they're finally dug out from that era. They finally have been able to make it their own, and there's not really the DNA of Donald Sterling on this franchise anymore. And I think if you look at the just player empowerment angle of this, it is quite a wonderful circle, right? I mean, players used to leave the Clippers as soon as humanly possible.
Yep.
Free agents would leave, and Donald Sterling would just let them go because he didn't believe in paying players, and he didn't believe players were valuable. Now you have players like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George asking for trades and coming to the Clippers as free agents or in a trade, trying to get to this franchise. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what used to happen for the Clippers. And it's fascinating to see what happens next.
It is. It's also fascinating talking to Laker fans about it. Because I know, because there's a sense of excitement for their own world for great reasons. Certainly when they were the so-called dumpster fire 3 months ago, 2 months ago, before all this happened. And then to see how Clipper Nation, many are being accused of being fair weather front runner, but I know a ton of Clipper fans who have just been dying on the vine, so excited right now. And Ballmer, I mean, he's a special brand of nuts that you need in the front office.
I mean,
I know.
I went to that press conference where they introduced Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and I was sitting about 6 rows back, and he got to the microphone, and I was like, "Woo, we don't need a mic." I mean, I can hear you loud and clear, man. He is so excited.
We've got that already right here, Mike. You got the we've cut them up, and we've had a great time with this one the entire time. You have it over there, Mike? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, whatever.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, here he is. He's pumped. It's all about
From now on, it's all about the Larry O.B.
Right?
Yeah. He's so fired up, and I have this fun feeling with the Clippers right now, because they're as much as they have this team that's incredibly deep and talented. I don't think that they have as much pressure on them as the Lakers, because
they're not the Lakers.
They're not the Lakers, and they don't have LeBron. But when you look at where basketball in LA sits, people always said, why did it take so long to get rid of Donald Sterling? Why did it take the league, for this tape and for everything? And the cynic in me says, yeah, people may have wanted Donald Sterling gone, but they also didn't mind that the Clippers were a sleeping giant and were never going to be good as long as Donald Sterling owned them, because it's just competition. There was 29 other owners that are yeah, that team should be really good. They're in LA.
Why do I think, Ramona, as we wrap up this conversation about LA basketball, that Kobe still looms over everything? Is that a legitimate?
If you said to basketball fans in Los Angeles, who is the king of LA basketball, I would say 80% of them, if not more, would still say Kobe Bryant.
Given the choice of LeBron and Kawhi in the mix, too. And Anthony Davis. And
look, LeBron hasn't done anything in LA yet. He hasn't. He came here, but didn't make an impact in year one. And I think the enduring image of him in year one is probably him walking into Staples Center drinking the wine. I mean, I like it was a really bad year for the Lakers and for LeBron. And so like he has to win. And I think the fact that you haven't heard much from him this summer outside of Taco Tuesdays, I think that's a good sign because I think he knows it. And I think that when you're quiet, that means that it's your brew time. You know, you're brewing something up. Like,
I think he kind of enjoyed's not the right word because he is a competitor at the core. I think the April, May, and June off was refreshing to him.
I would hope
so. Would you say that he did, that the grind wasn't there?
It does wear you out, man.
I'm not saying he didn't miss it, but I think he realized that there was something about, and he took it in.
Well, don't you feel like that when you have a big project, right? And you go deep into something and you put everything into it and then it's over. There's a sense of like fatigue and needing to like let yourself fill back up with motivation and energy to take on something big again. Mm-hmm. Like the man literally went to 8 straight finals. That's like putting yourself into going deep for 8 straight years and never really having much downtime to recover. He finally did. And now let's see how he plays with that chip on his shoulder, with that renewed motivation to redeem himself and remind people he's still King James. The question will be, will his body go along with it?
I guess last one for you, Ramona, before I let you go, is the best team in the West here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. I just don't know which one it is.
I mean, the Rockets with Russ added to that mix.
I know. I love that mix. I really like that.
Utah has made itself better. Denver is basically running it back, and they were the 2 seed. I understand Golden State is not the
I don't want to count out
same.
the Warriors yet. I'm one of those Warriors believers. Like, I still think that I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're near the top of the West and in the Western Conference Finals again. Like,
well, here's the painting I paint for Los Angeles sports fans on this show. And by the way, we didn't even mention Portland either, which I love. Yeah. Okay, is that Lakers, Clippers? They're all excited. Let's just say each of them wins 55, right? Let's just put it out there, 55. Yeah. While the Warriors minus clearly Durant, they're getting used to no Clay. Yeah. On occasion, we know Curry will be out just for a few games, whatever. Draymond might be as well. Curry's trying to get the mix together, but they cobble together 48 wins. 47, maybe 50. Mm-hmm. They're the 6th seed for a 3-seeded Clippers or Lakers team. How does that taste? Right?
I mean, because you could literally, I mean, the Warriors are like the team no one's going to want to play, but but remember this, they're going into that new building in San Francisco. This would be a natural like sabbatical year where they've been to 5 straight finals. They need to. The Clay's injured. Like, let's not push it. But you can't do that moving into that new building in that rebrand with these guys who are a little stung that Kevin Durant left. They've got something to prove that they didn't. This wasn't just that they won without him, right? And they can win without him again. So I don't see the drop off for the Warriors. I don't, and I still think anybody who writes them off is
at their own peril.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't think the rest of the league does either.
30 for 30 podcast from ESPN and The Undefeated present The Sterling Affairs. You can get it right now, 5-episode series where on the ESPN app and where all podcasts are available, reported and hosted by ESPN senior writer Ramona Shelburne. Thanks for coming in, Ramona.
Thanks, Rich.
This place, you come here anytime you wish. Ramona Shelburne, again, check out the podcast. It is addictive. Be careful. Make sure you got some time for yourself.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.